Good afternoon. Thank you all for being here. I'm going to try not to be too emotional. This is only my second resolution this term. So I hope that gives you an idea of how significant and how important Dr. Jenson is to me, and I know to all of you that are here today. It's moments like this that we know are in transitions in life to different and new and exciting things. I know Dr. Jenson's still going to be coming back and working with his projects and continuing with his students. Guam has been so much a part of his life, and he's been so much a part of ours for almost 30 years that when these significant moments come in life, they're bittersweet because we reflect on all the wonderful things we have had the opportunity to work together, and then at the same time, the feeling that even though we know he's going on to new challenges and a new chapter, we're certainly going to miss his presence because he definitely has had such an imprint in the university and certainly in the work of WERI. Almost 25, going on 26 years ago, I was very concerned about the increased salt content in our drinking water. And we picked up the phone, and who was at the other end of the line was Dr. Jenson. And it's one of those moments in your life when you don't realize a single phone call can make such an incredible change. That day led to the creation of the Hydrogeologic Survey. It led to reinstituting the monitoring program and our monitoring wells throughout the island that had been left in decay for quite some time, and the opportunity for our incredibly bright young students, some of who are here today, that have continued and will continue in his legacy with the education opportunity he's provided them with regards to water research. Also, the profiling of our water lens, how significant that is, and how much knowledge less than 25 years ago we didn't have, and what we have now as a result of the work that he did, the work of many others. I mean, if I go back, Dr. Stein Denton, Dr. Heitz, Dr. Segrist, Dr. Sharam Kajrapana. Boy, talk about a time when WERI just had such incredible presence with all those doctors that were there. And the groundwork that they laid to create the Hydrogeologic Survey that will continue to benefit our community and the region and other parts of the world that your students will continue to go on to. So indeed honored, incredibly honored. And I want to thank my staff. I want to thank all the work that everyone's put together. Certainly Mr. Dueñas from my office, who's contributed to sitting down with you, Dr. Jenson, to tell your story, and I hope it's something your grandchildren and great-grandchildren down the road will read and know the incredible contribution that you made, and also to Tracy from my office for helping put all this together. And with that, we're going to begin reading your resolution, Dr. Jenson. This is the story of your life. You will find out things about Dr. Jenson you did not know when you hear this resolution, so... I found out things I didn't know. Yes. Very impressed. I mean, well, yes, Alfred Dueñas really did a lot of research, but it was a lot of time just taking down to sit down with Dr. Jenson for him, who normally is very shy and reserved, to tell us about his life story, and it's very impressive, and it's been embodied in this resolution. So with that, we'll start off with Senator Taitague.
Thank you, Senator Brown. And this is resolution number 405-36 COR, which will always be in the history of the legislature and archived, so this will stay with us forever. Okay. This is introduced by Senator Joanne Brown, myself, Senator Telo T. Taitague, Speaker Therese Terlaje, Senator Sabina Flores Perez, Senator V. Anthony Ada, Senator Frank Blas Jr., Senator James Moylan, Senator Chris Dueñas, and all the other senators. This is relative to recognizing and congratulating John W. Jenson, Ph.D., on the occasion of his retirement from the Water and Environmental Research Institute of the Western Pacific at the University of Guam, and commending him for his 29 years of outstanding service to the people of Guam. Be it resolved by the Committee on Rules of Iminentrentaisais Nahaslaturin Guahan, whereas John W. Jenson was born in Montpelier, Idaho, and grew up in the Rocky Mountains of the Pacific Northwest. And whereas, upon graduating from Crook County High School in Pineville, Oregon in 1971, John W. Jenson entered the United States Air Force Academy in Colorado, where he earned a bachelor's degree of science degree in economics in 1975 and was commissioned as a second lieutenant in the United States Air Force. He was then sent to the University of Michigan, where he earned a master's degree and applied economics in 1976, after which he entered the Minuteman Missile Combat Crew, training at Vandenberg Air Force Base in California. And after completion of his training, he was assigned to serve as a nuclear missile launch officer of the 341st Strategic Missile Wing, Malmstrom Air Force Base in Montana. And whereas, while serving as a Minuteman Missile Combat Crew commander, Lieutenant Jenson published a professional paper on the differences between American and Soviet nuclear strategies in the Air Force University Review in 1979, which he was selected by the journal as the outstanding article of the year for 1979. And whereas in 1979, Lieutenant Jenson was promoted to captain and met and married Cheryl M. Hensbury in Great Falls, Montana.
Whereas Captain Jenson was next assigned to the Space and Missile Future Concepts Division, Headquarters, Strategic Air Command, Offutt Air Force Base, Nebraska from 1980 to 1983, at the end of which he was promoted to Major 3 years early and assigned to the Strategic Division, Headquarters, United States Air Force, Pentagon, Washington, D.C., from 1983 to 1986. And while on assignment at the Pentagon in 1986, United States President Ronald Reagan and Russia President Mikhail Gorbachev agreed to reduce their country's nuclear missile forces by at least 2/3. Major and Mrs. Jenson decided to take a reserve commission and leave active duty to retrain for a new career in geology. And whereas John W. Jenson was promoted to Lieutenant Colonel by the Air Force in July 1993 and received his Ph.D. in geology from Oregon State University on September 30, 1993. The University of Guam welcomed him on October 1st, 1993, as an assistant professor to fill its new position for a hydrogeologist and groundwater modular at its Water and Energy Research Institute of the Western Pacific, WERI, which in 1988 changed its name by replacing energy with environmental. Whereas Dr. Jenson joined the faculty of the University of Guam's new graduate environmental science program administered by the College of Natural and Applied Sciences, in which he has taught courses in hydrogeology, Pacific Island geology and climate history, and scientific competence and integrity, while Mrs. Jenson was recruited by the Guam Department of Education in 1993 and taught first at Price Elementary School and then at Benavente Middle School for a total of 26 years.
Whereas Dr. Jenson has served as a graduate advisor to 20 of the 69 students that he completed thesis in the program since 1997. And of the 20, 5 went on to earn PhDs, and 3 won the University of Guam Presidential Thesis Award for Outstanding Graduate Thesis of the Year. And whereas during his career at the University of Guam, Dr. Jenson collaborated with various colleagues on more than 50 journal articles, 30 technical reports, 30 conference proceedings, and 70 abstracts and presentations. And whereas Dr. Jenson's research encompassed both basic and applied aspects of island, groundwater hydrology, and environmental science, his research portfolio, including the thesis work of his students, included mapping the Northern Guam Lenses Aquifer, NGLA, numerological modeling of the NGLA, Pacific and Island Atoll aquifers, the evolution of limestone island aquifers in general, and NGLA in particular, hydrologic characteristics of the NGLA, including percolation, recharge, discharge, hydraulic properties, and long-term sanitary patterns and trends in Guam's production wells. Reconstruction of the prehistoric climate conditions of Guam and the West Pacific region, and management of NGLA and protection of groundwater quality. And
whereas in 1997, Dr. Jenson was tenured and promoted to associate professor at UOG and to colonel by the Air Force, and then in 2002 promoted to professor by UOG. He served as professor of environmental geology ever since. From 1997 to 2013, Dr. Jenson collaborated with Dr. John Milroy of Mississippi State University to develop and apply the Carbonate Island Karst model to the region's tectonically active limestone-capped islands. Dr. Jenson's basic scientific research activities also include collaborative work with Dr. Jay Banner, University of Texas, Austin, to characterize Guam paleoclimate from speleothems, I'm glad he's right next to me, and corals, along with other related topics, including sea level history, coastal speleogenesis, and the hydrogeological evolution of the aquifer. Dr. Jenson also worked with Dr. Peter Clark and his students at Oregon State University, building on his own doctoral dissertation to modeling dynamic behavior of the southern lobes of the Pleistocene North American ice sheet. And whereas Dr. Jenson applied work on Guam's drinking water, includes assessment of sinkholes and other drainage features on new construction sites, evaluation of newly drilled and rehabilitated wells, evaluation of rehabilitation potential for long out-of-service wells, and reconnaissance of promising sites for new production wells. Recently completed work includes hydrogeologic study of Santa Rita Spring to provide engineering design recommendations to Guam Waterworks Authority for rehabilitation. He is currently working with the Guam Environmental Protection Agency to develop an updated approach to aquifer protection, which will account economic constraints as well as hydrologic conditions. And whereas Dr. Jenson's service to the University of Guam includes service as chair of the Faculty Council Executive Committee and member of the Faculty Senate Organizing Committee, 1999 to 2000, member of the University of Guam Presidential Search Committee, 2001, and president of the first, second, and fourth faculty senates, and at other times as Senate parliamentarian and chair of its Standing Committee on Institutional Excellence and Faculty Excellence during a total of 15 years of service in the Faculty Senate.
Whereas Dr. Jenson continued his military service in the Air Force Reserve while assigned as an individual mobilization augmentee to headquarters U.S. Forces Japan, Yokota Air Force Base from 1986 to 2002, to headquarters 13th Air Force, Anderson Air Force Base, Guam from 2002 to 2005 when he retired from the Air Force at the rank of colonel. Whereas as the director of WERI from 2016 to the present, Dr. John W. Jenson fostered interagency working relationships, internal and external scientific collaborations, strategic planning, quality management, and continued commitment to providing reliable and objective scientific support for the benefit of Guam and the Western Pacific region. WERI retained its place as one of the top-rated among the nation's 54 water resource research institute, with the USGS rating is as one of the 12 outstanding institutes in the latest 5-year review. Dr. Jenson's term as director also saw the rehabilitation and expansion of the Comprehensive Water Monitoring Program, along with the implementation of the One Guam Water Resources Information Program, and the acquisition of funding for a new building for WERI, with expanded laboratory and teaching facilities. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Committee on Rules of Imeni 23 na Legislatura en Guam, does hereby, on behalf of Legislatura en Guam and the people of Guam, recognize and congratulate John W. Jenson, Ph.D. on the occasion of his retirement from the Water and Environmental Research Institute of the Western Pacific, University of Guam, and commend him for his 29 years of outstanding service to the people of Guam. And be it further resolved that the Speaker and the Chairperson of the Committee on Rules certify and the Legislative Secretary attest to the adoption hereof, and that copies of the same be thereafter transmitted to John W. Jenson, Ph.D., to Cheryl Jenson, and the Water and Environmental Research Institute of the Western Pacific, and to the Honorable Lourdes Leon Guerrero y Magat Lahin Guahan, or Magat Hagan Guahan, duly and regularly adopted by the Committee on Rules of Imenibensi Sais na Legislature in Guahan on the 10th day of August 2022. Therese M. Terlaje, Speaker. Tina Munya Barnes, Chair of the Committee on Rules. Amanda L. Shelton, Legislative Secretary.
Thank you so much, Senator. On behalf of the people, then we extend this recognition as a token of our appreciation for all that you've done for Guam and the Western Pacific and our brothers and sisters in the Blue Continent. So, undanklo na si Diyos masi and si Diyos ang binidisi. God bless you and thank you for all that you've done for our island of Guam.
I know we have to get Dr. Jenson to say a few words. I have to tell you, out of all the things I've done in the legislature, spearheading the creation of the marine preserves and the creation of the hydrogeologic survey are two of the top most significant pieces of legislation that we put in place. Senator Tina was there in the 24th legislature that we did both of those. So indeed an honor, Dr. Jenson. You can't leave us without saying a few words.
Thank you. Okay. I'll see how far I can get here. I might have to hand this to her.
Just a bit closer.
Okay, thanks. Well, I didn't do any of this by myself. It's all been the outcome of a team effort. Good science doesn't get done alone, it's a team sport. Even the legends leave out the roles of the students and staff, and even the great discoveries, perhaps especially the great discoveries. In one of the courses that I teach, we note that Ernest Rutherford got the Nobel Prize, but it was his assistant, Ernest Marsden, who noticed the occasional scattering of the electron beam while he was sitting for hours and hours, day after day, for weeks, watching the beam on a screen in the dark. And that's what provided the evidence for the atomic nucleus. And everyone's heard of the Geiger counter. Hans Geiger was one of his friends and one of Rutherford's other research assistants. He got tired of sitting in the dark room for hours and invented a better way of detecting atomic particles. They don't give Nobel Prizes in geology. Geologists are the kids who come home. Geologists are the kids who come home with rocks in their pockets and we never outgrow it. But this is the hard part of it. Even if they did give Nobel Prizes for geology, excuse me, it wouldn't be better than this. It's been my privilege and honor to serve this great community and made it my home. And it always will be. Sherry and I spend more than half of our adult lives here. Raised our daughters here. And I don't know a soul in West Virginia where we're going to except for them. We're going to get to know our grandkids, but we're also going to stay connected and try to bridge both worlds. The pandemic has made long-distance communication both powerful and routine. As I started out to say at the beginning, I can only take a little bit of the credit for what you all are attributing to me here. If I've made any contribution that I have the right to brag about, it's my skill for spotting and recruiting top talent. Some of you who are here today. First, the students that I've had who've done all the heavy lifting, and now the younger faculty who we've been recruiting, which includes some of those former students. And I can only thank God for blessing me with staff like Gemma and Anthony and Norma. And now that I'm naming names, I'm at risk for leaving people out. And there's a long list, which includes our lab staff, of course, and all my colleagues in the agencies and firms here in Guam, especially GWA, Guam EPA. It's hard to name them all. My chief partner in everything, of course, has been Sherry, who invested her career in teaching for DOE since we arrived here. In fact, she came first in August, right after the earthquake. And I came in October, right after I defended my dissertation. And now we're going out again on the same schedule. Finally, I'd like to acknowledge my debt to Senator Brown in the 24th legislature, who rescued and rehabilitated our data collection program and analysis programs in 1998, and the legislatures ever since that have maintained those programs, and the support we've gotten from GWA, Guam EPA, everybody. None of what I've done, and most of what WERI has done since then, would have been possible without the public support that we have here. When I share that with directors of other institutes, at the meetings where the directors of all the state and territorial institutes come together. Thank you. They're always astounded when I tell them the kind of support that we get and the kind of relationship we have with our water purveyors and our environmental regulators and the community in general. Public support here has been remarkable and rewarding, and it's been a pleasure to serve and to be part of this remarkable island. And I'd better stop now.